Opposition is a very important part of debate. Without it, you wouldn't have a debate. And building on the principles that we've seen so far with opposition, our main objective is to oppose the case that we see in the side of the proposition. But how do we do that? We understand their arguments. We understand that there are, something we're supposed to oppose. And how that works is what we're going to learn right now. So just a quick review of the term of, proposition and opposition. A proposition is the side who bring a declarative statement that affirms a clear position. And that's what we have been working on so far. They support an idea that's being proposed. The opposition, their job is to say the opposite of the proposition. This is a technical term. Like you propose something, the opposition needs to say the opposite. And as we learn with engagement, you need to say directly the opposite or you're not really engaging. Within debate, though, you have a team whose job it is to win that entire side of the argument. That means that they don't have to win every single point, but overall, in the main motion or the main statement, they need to come out being more correct. Okay, so with this in mind, I want to talk about opposition, which is first clashing and creating dialectic. If you remember the word dialectic from the first class, it's a discussion with questioning for the purpose of finding truth. All right, so jumping right into it. Today we're going to learn about rebuttal, the role of the leader opposition, what is a clash, and about positive and negative matter. Some of these terms we've heard before, and now you're going to see by the end of today how it all makes a lot more sense. Okay, so first of all, rebuttal. This is something which we practiced more recently where we're refuting the previous speaker. In the last assignment we had at home, we were refuting ourselves. We were proving something that we heard was wrong or false, just proving it. In debate, rebuttal is usually done before you bring your positive matter or your seek arguments. So in a debate, you would start by saying the other side said this, either statement or explanation, that is incorrect because, and you would do exactly what we did in our engagement assignment. You would take what you disagree with, you take a minute or two to disagree with all the points you disagree with, and then you would bring your full seek argument. So this is the place where rebuttal fits into a debate. Rebuttal also, by the way, doesn't need to be these shorter, I don't agree with because. It could actually be a full seek argument like we've done, where you can spend the entire seek argument really deconstructing the other side's case, like we saw with some of the drills. Okay, so this is the place of rebuttal within any speech. By the way, the proposition can also refute or rebuttal the opposition's point. So both sides are disagreeing with each other. Okay, so now let's get to opposing itself. When we get a motion and we're told we are against the motion, when we hear an argument and we're told it's our job to oppose the argument. So what does the opposition need to do? What is their sacred role? Because we see here as the proposition, which is what we've been most of the time, we just argue for the motion. We have no limitations, we have no restrictions, and as we've seen here in this group, we all had completely different ideas, sometimes very well argued, but all we had to do was support the idea. But when you're the opposition, someone already spoke. An argument was already made, like in the engagement drill. We're suddenly not as free to move. So what is the role of the opposition? So the answer, drum roll, is the opposition must set the clash. Okay, and this is a term you've heard me using since lesson 2. And now we're going to finally get it fully defined. Yay. So the clash, we're finally learning about clash. So what is a clash? Let's have somebody read. Simon, are you able to do some reading?
Sure.
All right, take it away.
Clash. Oh, what is a clash? Clash, where two opinions collide on one idea.
Okay, excellent. Let's keep reading, please.
Clash. The clash is the point of contention between opposing sides, the battleground of the definition setting stage.
Okay, very good. So the
I didn't
clash,
understand that last bit. What do you mean the definition setting stage?
okay, I'll explain that in 1 second. So first and foremost, the clash is where two opinions collide on one idea. Okay, and this very much ties to engagement and everything we've been doing this week and last week. Okay, if our opinions do not collide, we're not debating. This room is hot. I am hungry. Let's get pizza. Can I turn on the air conditioner and buy a pizza? Yeah, we're not engaging. But if I say, let's make the room warmer, let's make the room colder in the same room, then we have a clash. So it's exactly the opposite phrasing of the same statement. And whether one is in the positive and one is in the negative or vice versa, we could definitely see the proposition. For example, we should eat less meat. That can be a proposition case. The opposition case needs to be something that opposes that. So the clash is the same idea, the same statement where two sides say the opposite thing. That is the essence of debate, where both sides are saying the opposite of the same idea. Okay, so first and foremost, the clash, the point of contention between opposing sides. This is the battleground and definition setting stage. We're going to get more into definitions in our next class. But if you remember, so far, when we have seek arguments and we explain different terms, for example, this past drill, we learned like about methane and global warming. So we define certain things and explain certain things. If one side brings a definition, the other side can challenge it. But if both agree, then that's the term they need to do throughout the debate. So the place that we would say the definition setting stage is usually the dialogue between the first speakers in a debate, where we're still establishing what we define things to be. Are we defining meat in a global warming debate as beef or any livestock, for example? All right, so I hope that answers the question. Like early in debate, we choose what our definitions are, and choosing our contention points at that point is especially important. Okay, number 2, Jada, please read.
Clash. There are many possible clashes, and some will be more in a debater's favor than others. So choose a good clash. Excellent.
So we see here that there are many possible clashes. Okay, there's not just one place to oppose a debate. There are many. And that's why some of them are more in a debater's favor than others. So we want to choose a good one. And we'll see in a minute just how much saying power we have and where we choose to debate. Jada, can you please keep reading?
However, there are also many directions which are off clash. For example, statements everyone agrees on.
Great. So we see here that there are many places we can clash, and there's also something called off clash. So what is off clash? Off clash is when no one disagrees, where the statement is so general that no one has an issue with it. And this is something we find happens with students often, that they're going to bring a point which no one is really going to disagree with. You know, breathing air is important. We should exercise. Drink water every day. You could get an essay on that, but it's not particularly interesting. We're convinced before we start. No one, and in a debate, no one would argue with us that breathing air is important. So when no one disagrees, or when everyone agrees, that's off clash. You want to make sure when you're debating that you bring something that someone can disagree with. Okay, let's take an example of off clash. It's important for us to see how this works. Let's have someone else read. Amy, can you please read example number 1?
Is there a clash? Statement 1. A nuclear holocaust is a horrible thing.
All right, excellent. As horrible as this may be, a nuclear holocaust, my question, is there a clash here?
No.
Nope, this is very much off clash. No one is going to go up and say, you know, nuclear war is great. The world is overpopulated. Like, this is totally a good idea. Like, no one in any rational debate would argue with it for this, hoping to win. All right, Amy, there's statement number 2. Please read statement number 2.
Statement 2. Countries should not interfere in each other's energy decisions.
Okay, is there a clash here?
Yeah.
Some say yes, I see some say no. All right, let's think for a second. Should country interfere in each other's decisions of how they're going to power their infrastructure?
We're seeing now live with Russia.
That's there can be some specific cases, but overall, should countries get involved in each other's decisions?
If it might hurt other countries, then maybe yes. I think
Okay, so
it is a
it's,
clash.
Well, I believe this could be a little bit, controversial, because if we're talking about using energy, I don't know, that can affect the global warming or something like that. So maybe
Okay,
there's
so-
a certain type of interference. It's not the straightforward interference that we're talking about. It's a bit. Is there a clash or no? Depends on the people engaged in the debate. On the debate.
Okay, so that's a very good point. I'll agree with that. It's definitely a more contentious statement than the first one, which is very easy to see it's off clash. And should countries get involved in each other's decision-making for energy or otherwise is more debate specific. Definitely agree that statement number 2 is more clashable than statement 1, but also you could find cases where it's like countries shouldn't get involved in each other's business. We could also see that.
So you have to be very specific when you want to create a debate and
Definitely.
to create this clash.
Orit is absolutely right. So to both of these statements, or at least to statement 1, and for statement 2, the government opposition will generally say yes. For example, a nuclear holocaust, a horrible thing. Yes. Countries shouldn't intervene in each other's decisions. Yes. Usually there could be agreement, though I agree that the second one is case specific. All right. Let's now look at statement number 3. Kuzama, can you please read? Takes away all the suspense here, but you're on mute.
Is there a clash? Statement 3. North Korea should have complete freedom to pursue nuclear energy.
All right. Is there a clash there?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yep.
Yep.
Very much
Very
so.
obvious.
Very obvious. Okay. And this is the place that we'd like it to go into clash or off clash. You want there to be this type of response. Like beef should not be fed to anyone over the age of 18. Some of them may not be winnable debates, but we can hear the difference between nuclear holocaust, a horrible thing, and North Korea should have complete freedom to pursue nuclear programs. And that's the difference between clash and off clash. Like we all need to breathe oxygen is off clash. There should be a special tax made for the purpose of cleaning the air. Maybe that isn't. So this is key. So when in doubt, try to phrase your statement to something where you could clearly see a clear yes and no within normal participants in the world that we are part of. In debate, usually there is a rule that unless the debate states otherwise, we're talking about modern Western liberal democracies, that those are the values that we share. So if the debate starts, this house, which is North Korea, or this house, which is, a feudal society and, the Middle Ages, if that's who you are, you think in that mindset. But otherwise, we're normal people, part of today's world. And those are the worlds we use according to. Okay. So clash is directly engaging with some idea. Okay. It's not something that no one is going to debate with. So with this in mind, now we're going to talk about the types of opposition, which is very much the heart of where opposition is different from proposition. So the types of opposition that we have are 4. There are 4 places to clash. The first is existence. The second is definition. The third is justification. And the fourth is no comment. And we're going to elaborate on all of them. Okay, so when you oppose a debate, these are one of the ways you oppose. And looking back at the last drill you did, you can already see, once I elaborate on what these are, you've already done one of these. You just didn't know these were options. Okay, so let's have somebody read. Larissa, can you please read?
Daniel, can I ask a question, please?
Can we do the question after we explain the slide? All right.
Yeah.
Larissa, take it away.
Existence, the problem never existed. Like, what is
Yeah.
meant?
I'll explain all this.
A definition. It did happen, but it meant something else. Justification. Yes, it happened, but there was an excellent reason. The harms are worse. No comment. This point is not central to the debate, so I'm actively choosing not to dedicate my finite time to responding to it.
Okay, so we see here that there are 4 different ways that we can respond to the same point. Let's see this in an example, and then we'll bring it all together. Ofer, I would like you to read the next slide. The proposition is going to start with this. Mr. Opposition, I'll be proposition. You stole my car. This is the statement. You stole my car. And now let's look at the different types of ways to oppose. Go.
Okay. Mr. That and that, you stole my car. I never stole your car. I took it, but I didn't steal it. You said I could take it 10 years ago, so I decided to take it today. I did steal the car. But I did it to help my grandma. I will not speak to you about this right now.
Okay, very good. Now we see how this works. First of all, I say you stole my car. If you're going to clash on the existence, this is taking on the motion as you get it straight on. You know, beef causes a lot of global warming. No, it doesn't. Okay, like that's the first level where you directly saying the opposite of the statement. And that's one way that you can oppose, but it's not the only way that you can oppose. Next is definition. That's I took it, but I didn't steal. So you're right, the action happened. However, I took your car. It's not stealing though. You said I could take it. If you said I could take it, it's not stealing. So I'm agreeing with your definition. I'm agreeing with how you're interpreting the motion, but I'm saying that some part of it is not correct. Then justification. This is one of the ones where we found that the opposing came, further down the line. I did steal it straight up. You never gave me permission. I stole it, but I did it to help an old lady. I did it to help your grandmother. I stole your car to help your grandmother. And no comment is I'm not going to speak about this right now. Okay, so we see here that when we take a debate like the ones that we saw, we have different places that we can challenge it. And we're going to practice this in a minute. But first, there was a question.
In one of the first session, we talked about the argument being subjective to culture. And I'm wondering if looking for clashes doesn't also apply here. I mean, the issue being subjective to the person who's reading it. If you're pro North Korean, then there's no clash in it.
Right. So for this case, so it's what I said, sort of what I said before. The place to say that culture, other things can come into play, usually comes with debates where the debate specifically says you are North Korea, you are a lifelong vegetarian, you are from a society which has no summer vacation. Like if that's defined, then you can think differently. But if no definition is given, it's usually accepted that we're participants of a modern liberal democratic society. That's the assumption. The place this comes into teaching is we don't want our students suddenly deciding they are representatives of very extreme ideas, and that's what they're culturally comfortable with. Because the second you start assuming, very different frameworks of reality, you can be for all sorts of different things. But it usually is, what I usually find is students try to shape reality to support the argument that they want to give rather than finding an argument that is strongest for this specific debate. So in most cases, I think it's fair to tell students if right now, for example, we say, going a little extreme here, but if our debate is this house would stop eating meat, the student says, well, what if I have a very strange condition that I can only consume red meat? And if I don't, I'm going to go through a miserable process and then die. It's like that's trying to change reality to like win by default. It's like I have such a condition, I can't stop eating meat. But what about for everyone else? Why should they stop eating meat? So in this kind of a case, that's where, I mean, you want to take it to a place where we're mostly normal unless it's defined as otherwise.
Okay.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. So before we practice this a bit, I want us to say that in debate, and there's another thing that we sort of feel that, you know, we're going to win it in a one-liner. So in a debate is a game of tug of war, and the clash is the string in the middle where the opposition chooses to engage. That's where the debate is. And then both sides can decide where they stand. If the other team talks about your point, that means it's probably a smart point. And if you can get the other team to talk about your material the whole time in a debate, and I could say from my own end, if they spend their whole case deconstructing my Sikh argument, I did a good job. But debate is won on points. It's won on multiple arguments, which are done collectively better than the other side. It's not won in a knockout. The reason for this is both sides have merit. There are reasons to eat meat. There are reasons not to eat meat. There are reasons to lower the voting age. There are reasons not to. And for all of these, if you set a good clash with good arguments, the other side sees the threat and will spend their time to weaken the case. And if that happens, you're on the right track. So that's about clash. And this ties back to what I said before about building a debate case. Positive and negative matter. Positive is why you're right. Negative is why they're wrong. And to win the debate, your side needs to be better, not just theirs is worse. So if you're taking the things we learn in debate for essay writing for students, you can tell them you should bring 2 Sikh arguments on the motion I'm giving you in class, showing why you're correct. And then you listen to the other side and write 1 argument that is the opposite Sikh of something they said. And the same thing in debate. If we're talking for a world, we're saying right now we shouldn't wear masks anymore. We need showing why we shouldn't and why the side saying that we should is wrong. But we also need material showing why our side is better. Okay? Clear so far? All right, so it's important because sometimes we can build an entire case just showing why the other side is wrong, 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 especially when we're opposition. It's our job to oppose, but it's not just our job to oppose. It is our job to be able to take the material that the other side brings and also show why our world is better. And this is the responsibility of the leader of the opposition in a debate. Tying back into what I said about this, we see here that there is the different speeches, and here the leader opposition speaks first from the opposition side and chooses how to respond. The leader of the opposition, of course, needs to say why what the proposition says is incorrect, but they also need to bring good material as to why their side is right. It's not enough just criticize. A debate is about both sides trying to show which world is a better world. So if we're saying right now on the topic of we should have a mask-free world, the proposition says we shouldn't wear masks anymore. This is a better world. We can move freely on a bus. We're not going to get fines anymore. This is better. And the opposition will say, you know what? Having masks, first of all, you know, the buses is a comparatively short amount of time to ride. But with masks, considering COVID is not completely gone, is a safer world. And here's my Sikh argument for why safety is important, as opposed to a bit of freedom of movement and fines meant to protect you. And then we have a debate. Now, what is the better world? The more free one or the more safe one? They both have pros and cons. And that's why you need positive and negative matter when you're giving a debate. So even though you're opposition and your job is to oppose, not all of your material should be saying why they're wrong in the different ways that we learned and we're about to practice. But it's also very much about bringing some material showing why your side is right and why your side is better. So are there any questions?
Yes,
Clear?
can I? Amy,
Yes, Amy.
I didn't understand. You said at the beginning, you don't start with the seek. You start with something else.
So in the structure of debate, when you're doing debate in a competitive format, unless you're the first speaker of the whole debate where no one spoke first, whenever you speak, the beginning of your speech you would give to refuting the previous speaker's points. You take a minute or two to say why their points are incorrect, and then you would bring your own full seek arguments. So it's not what you need to do in class if you're using any of these things for drills, but if you're having an actual debate, you want to give your whoever speaker is speaking time to respond to the previous speaker. So usually that's done in the beginning of their speech, get your responses out of the way, and then go on to your positive material. Right. Are there any other questions? All right. So seeing none, we will end the recording of the lesson. That is opposition.